In the last hour, Boris Johnson has spoken to his counterpart in Iran to clear up comments that he made that could reportedly lead to a woman jailed in Iran having her sentence increased.
And it follows calls for the Foreign Secretary to be fired after he suggested that British Iranian national Nazanin Ratcliffe was in the country training journalists when she was arrested last year.
We're joined from Westminster now by the former Conservative Foreign Secretary Sir Malcolm Rifkind. Sir Malcolm, welcome to you. I just want to read you what Emily Thornberry had to say about this last night concerning Mr Johnson. While your previous gaffes in the role of Foreign Secretary may have seriously damaged this country's interests abroad, this, I believe, is the first time that one of your comments has directly harmed the interests and prospects of a British national who instead should have been entitled to expect your support and aid. Do you agree with that?
Well, I think there's no doubt that Boris Johnson made a serious error in the remarks that he made. He had not properly studied his own brief when he was giving evidence to the Select Committee on Foreign Affairs. But he has rectified that to a very substantial degree. His willingness to speak to the Foreign Minister of Iran, he's done that. He's going to be reporting to the House of Commons later today. Difficult to know what else he could do under these circumstances.
Do you think he could maybe apologise to Miss Zaghari Ratcliffe's husband?
Well, I'm not sure apologies come into this. I mean, yes, there's been all these various stories about how it might increase her sentence. We don't know if there's any truth in that. Hopefully, there is no truth in that. That maybe is just something that people have chosen.
The Iranians decided to bring her back into court on the back of what he had to say and possibly giving her 5 more years in jail. So that they have taken it seriously.
Well, this has always been a political incarceration. It was always absurd and indefensible that she should have been arrested in the first place on what was a private visit for no other purpose. And what they have done is seek to exploit every opportunity to imply that she has some more sinister role. Now, whether they actually do have any intention of changing her sentence is another matter.
Just hearing from a spokesman right now, as we're talking, Sir Malcolm, for the British Foreign Ministry, saying that he has called his Iranian counterpart that we knew to reiterate his anxiety over the continued suffering of Ms Zaghari Ratcliffe. Spokesman for Theresa May says she has confidence in him as well. Do you think she can't sack Mr Johnson even if she wanted to?
No, the Prime Minister can sack whomsoever she wishes. She didn't offer a job to George Osborne, who'd been a very senior Chancellor of the Exchequer for 6 years. So she has the right and she has the power to do that. The question that will be addressed is there any great benefit in making fundamental changes of that kind? Now, Boris Johnson has to, I think, realise that as Foreign Secretary, his job is quite different to that of any other cabinet minister. And most cabinet ministers have a domestic audience that they're addressing, who listen carefully to what they say, but are not necessarily so involved with the detail. When you're a foreign secretary, you're speaking to the world, and other foreign ministries, other foreign governments listen to every word you're saying. He must have that constantly in mind and not make this kind of error again.
He's been in the job for a while now, and it's not as if he didn't have a bit of previous, calling President Obama part Kenyan, describing people in the Congo as breaking out in watermelon. Just let me finish. Watermelon smiles, implying people in Papua New Guinea indulge in orgies of cannibalism, and that was before he even took the job. Should he not already know how to conduct himself as Foreign Secretary?
Well, hold on. You're a journalist. Boris, when he made these various remarks, was working as a journalist, and you know what journalists are like, so you can't...
I'm not sure I've written anything quite like that, and I'm not going for a job in cabinet.
I'm sure you wish you had, but there we are. We're all very different. Now, that was Boris's previous occupation. The test is not what he said when he was a journalist. The test is what he has been doing and saying as a member of the government, and that's a quite different.
Well, that's exactly right, Sir Malcolm. And what he's saying is potentially putting a British national in danger. What he's saying right now.
Well, this wasn't a deliberate bit of negligence. What happened was there was a slip of the tongue. He said something that was incorrect. He's apologised for that, and he's rung the Iranian foreign minister. Now, I'm not saying that means it shouldn't have. It doesn't matter. It shouldn't have happened. And obviously, if it kept happening in this way, then a big question mark would arise about his future. But I don't think there's any minister in any government that hasn't occasionally been responsible for some faux pas. Dare I say it? I think I may have done myself over the years.
What about your thoughts on another minister who's in some trouble, Priti Patel, for going on holiday and holding meetings, 12 meetings in 12 days, I think, in Israel. Is that a blatant breach of ministerial code, and should she be sacked?
Well, a couple of points, if I may. I mean, she may have had 12 meetings, but a lot of these were with charities and private organisations, which I don't think come into the controversy. The real controversy, as you rightly say, was the meeting she had with the Prime Minister and with at least one other Israeli minister and senior officials. And there, it wasn't that she had these meetings, it's that the British government and the British ambassador in Israel was not aware of this and was not present when they happened, and that was unwise.
Is it against the ministerial code?
Well, I'm not an expert in the detail of the ministerial code. I haven't been a minister since 1997, when we didn't have one, so you'll forgive me on that particular question. But the point to bear in mind is that when a Secretary of State is meeting representatives of a foreign government, particularly if they're discussing what might be relatively sensitive issues of British policy, the other side will be taking a detailed note of what is said. And if you're not accompanied by a British ambassador or a diplomat, you haven't got that opportunity, and that is unwise, and it shouldn't have happened. So that has to be the rebuke, the reason for the rebuke that she has received.
The rebuke enough, though. She shouldn't go. She should keep her
she's
job.
Not a serial offender. I mean, this has happened once. She has acknowledged it was a mistake, and hopefully lessons have been learned.
Okay, so Malcolm, good to speak to you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
And while you've been speaking there to